The massive screen in Earth's Global Defense Command Center lit up with dozens of red dots. They appeared suddenly, just beyond Neptune's orbit. Admiral James Walker stood from his chair, his gray eyes fixed on the display. 20 years of service had taught him to stay calm in any situation. But this was different. This was what they had prepared for since that fateful day 50 years ago. "Analysis?" he asked, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. "Sir, we're detecting energy signatures unlike anything in our database," replied Lieutenant Mark Ross from his monitoring station. "They're bigger than anything we've ever seen. Much bigger." Walker nodded slowly. The room remained quiet except for the soft beeping of instruments. Every person present knew what this meant. Humanity wasn't alone anymore, and their visitors weren't trying to hide. "Alert status Alpha," Walker commanded. "Get me the President and the Joint Chiefs, and someone wake up Professor Miller at the Reverse Engineering Division. She needs to see this." The next 6 hours were a blur of activity. Ships, massive ones, entered the solar system in a display of power that would have terrified Earth just 50 years ago. But that was before the crashed scout ship in the Arctic, before humanity learned what was out there and decided to prepare. The alien fleet took position just beyond the moon's orbit. Their formation was perfect, military precise. A clear message: we're here, we're powerful, and we're organized. "They're broadcasting, sir," Lieutenant Ross announced. "All frequencies, all languages. They must have been monitoring our communications." Walker straightened his uniform. "Put it through." The main screen switched to show a humanoid figure. It looked almost human, except for the slight blue tint to its skin and the too perfect symmetry of its features. The being wore an elaborate uniform, covered in what must have been military decorations. "People of Earth," the alien spoke in perfect English. "I am High Commander Reed of the Galactic Imperial Fleet. Your world has been recognized as having achieved sufficient technological advancement to join the Empire. This is a great honor. You will submit to Imperial authority, and in return, you will receive the benefits of Imperial citizenship. Your response is expected within one standard planetary rotation." Walker allowed himself a small smile. They were so confident, so certain of Earth's submission. They hadn't noticed the defense platforms hidden in the asteroid belt, hadn't detected the quantum arrays buried on the moon, hadn't realized that humanity had spent 50 years preparing for exactly this moment. "High Commander," Walker responded, making sure his voice carried the same confident tone. "I am Admiral James Walker of the United Earth Defense Force. On behalf of Earth's united governments, I thank you for your generous offer." He paused, letting the tension build. In the corner of his eye, he could see Professor Miller entering the command center, her usual lab coat replaced by a formal uniform. She gave him a slight nod. All systems were ready. "However," Walker continued, "we must respectfully decline. This solar system is off-limits to Imperial expansion." The High Commander's perfect features showed the slightest hint of surprise before returning to their neutral position. "Perhaps I was unclear, Admiral. This is not a negotiation. The Empire does not request, it commands." "And perhaps I was unclear, High Commander," Walker replied, his voice taking on an edge of steel. "This is not a negotiation either. Earth does not submit. Not to you. Not to anyone." The alien's face darkened. "You do not comprehend your situation, Admiral. The Empire has conquered worlds far more advanced than yours. Your defiance is both futile and ill-advised." Walker's smile grew slightly wider. "With respect, High Commander, I don't think you comprehend your situation. We've been expecting you. For 50 years, we've been preparing for this moment. This is your only warning. Leave Earth's solar system, or face the consequences." The transmission ended abruptly. In the silence that followed, Professor Miller stepped up beside Walker. "They didn't detect any of our defenses," she said quietly. "The stealth systems worked perfectly." Walker nodded. "How long until they realize what they're really dealing with?" They'll probably try to establish a foothold first. Standard Imperial procedure, according to the data we recovered from the scout ship. When that fails, she shrugged, then they'll learn. Good, Walker said, watching as the Imperial ships maintained their position, probably planning their next move. Let's show them why you don't threaten Earth. The first battle for Earth's independence was about to begin. But unlike so many other worlds before them, Earth was ready. The Empire just didn't know it yet. High Commander Reed watched the red warning lights flash across his command console with growing anger. This was supposed to be simple. It was always simple. Land on the fourth planet, establish a base, and let the primitive locals realize resistance was pointless. But nothing about this system was going according to plan. Report, he barked at his technical officer. Sir, landing systems are failing across all ships. Navigation is scrambled. We can't get a stable lock on any landing zone. The Empire's most advanced ships hung uselessly above Mars, unable to land. Reed had chosen to ignore Earth's warning and proceed with standard conquest protocol. Now, his pride was costing him dearly. Back on Earth, Admiral Walker and Professor Miller watched the Empire's failed landing attempt through their advanced monitoring systems. They took the bait, Miller said, her fingers dancing across her control panel. Just like you predicted, straight to Mars, thinking we couldn't possibly protect two planets at once. Walker nodded. Show them what 50 years of preparation looks like, Professor. Miller pressed a final button, and across the surface of Mars, thousands of tiny lights activated. Hidden beneath the red dust, a network of defense platforms emerged. Each one was built using technology reverse engineered from that crashed scout ship, then improved by human innovation. In his command ship, Reed watched in disbelief as the supposedly dead planet came alive with energy readings. Impossible, he whispered. They're supposed to be primitive. They shouldn't have this technology. His ship's communication system crackled to life. Admiral Walker's voice filled the bridge. Having trouble with your landing, Aye, Commander. Walker's tone was polite, but Reed could hear the steel beneath it. Perhaps I should have mentioned that Mars is also off-limits. Actually, everything in this solar system is. Reed slammed his fist on his armrest. How? How do you have this level of technology? Our scouts reported your people were barely achieving spaceflight. 50 years ago, one of your scout ships crashed in our Arctic region, Walker explained calmly. We found it, studied it, learned from it, but we didn't just copy your technology, High Commander. We improved it. As if to prove his point, a beam of energy shot up from Mars's surface, precisely striking one of the Empire's smaller ships. The vessel's engines didn't explode. They simply stopped working. That was a warning shot, Walker continued. A demonstration of our engine nullifier. Your ship's crew is perfectly safe, but they'll need a tow back to your fleet. We can do the same to every ship you send into our space. Reed watched helplessly as the disabled ship drifted in Mars orbit. The technology to safely disable engines without destroying the ship was something even the Empire hadn't perfected. Yet these primitives had done it. The Empire will not forget this insult, Reed threatened, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. This isn't an insult, High Commander. This is a fact. Earth and its solar system are not for conquest. We've spent 50 years preparing to defend our home. How long are you willing to spend trying to take it? Professor Miller added more data to her display. Their fleet is pulling back from Mars, Admiral. Looks like they're regrouping near Jupiter's orbit. Walker nodded. They'll report back to their council now. The Empire isn't used to resistance, especially not effective resistance. They'll need time to process this. Will they give up? Miller asked, though she already knew the answer. No, Walker said, watching the Imperial ships retreat. They can't. If word spreads that a primitive world successfully resisted them, other worlds might get ideas. They'll be back, and in greater numbers. Good thing we haven't shown them everything yet, Miller replied with a slight smile. The defense platforms on Mars were impressive, But they were far from humanity's only surprise. As the Imperial fleet withdrew to a safe distance, Walker sent one final message. Consider this a lesson, High Commander. Humanity doesn't bow to empires. We never have. We never will. The next demonstration won't be a warning shot. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, but they had never encountered anything like Earth. Their biggest mistake was assuming that humanity would be like all the other worlds they had conquered. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The Imperial Council chamber was silent as High Commander Reed finished his report. 12 stern faces stared down at him from their elevated seats, their blue-tinted skin seeming darker in the chamber's dim light. He had just told them something impossible. A primitive world had not only resisted but had technology that could match, and in some ways exceed, the Empire's own. Explain again. First Counselor Dawn commanded, how these humans learned to disable our ships without destroying them. Before Reed could answer, the chamber's massive doors swung open. A tall figure in a black uniform strode in. Everyone straightened in their seats. This was Imperial Science Director Blake, the Empire's leading technology expert. I can answer that, Blake said, moving to the center of the chamber, because I've spent the last week studying Earth's defenses, and what I've found is troubling. The science director waved a hand, and a hologram appeared above the chamber floor. It showed Earth and its solar system, with countless tiny points of light representing human technology. 50 years ago, they found one of our scout ships, Blake explained. But instead of just copying our technology, they did something unprecedented. They improved it, combined it with their own ideas, created hybrid systems we never thought possible. The hologram zoomed in on Mars, showing the defense platforms that had humbled Reed's fleet. Look here, Blake continued. They took our basic energy principles and merged them with their own computer systems. Their artificial intelligence is different from ours. More unpredictable, more human. They don't think like we do, and that's their advantage. Professor Miller stood in her underground lab on Earth, unaware that she was the subject of discussion in the Imperial Council. She was looking at old photos on her desk. One showed her as a young scientist, standing next to the crashed alien ship that had changed everything. Professor, a voice called. She looked up to see Admiral Walker entering the lab. The Empire's ships are scanning us, she said, putting down the photo. They're being subtle about it, but our sensors detect their probes. Walker nodded. Let them look. They need to understand what they're dealing with. Miller walked to a large screen showing Earth's defense network. You know, when we first found that ship, everyone wanted to just copy their technology, build exactly what they had. But you had a different idea, Walker said with a slight smile. Yes, I said, why copy when we can improve? The Empire's technology is amazing, but it's rigid, unchanging. They've had the same systems for thousands of years. Humans, though, we never stopped trying new things. Back in the council chamber, Blake was reaching the same conclusion. These humans, the science director said, they think differently. They take risks we would never consider, combine technologies in ways we thought impossible. And most importantly, they've had 50 years to prepare specifically for us. Are you saying, First Counselor Dawn asked slowly, that this primitive world might actually be able to resist us? I'm saying, Blake replied, that they're not primitive at all. They've built their entire defense system knowing exactly how we think and how we fight. And they've designed it specifically to counter us. High Commander Reed stepped forward. Then we must crush them quickly before other worlds learn of this resistance. The first counselor raised a hand for silence. Agreed. We cannot allow this defiance to stand. Assemble the Imperial First Fleet, all of it. As the council members filed out, Blake remained, studying the hologram of Earth. Something about these humans bothered the science director. They weren't just ready for a fight. They seemed almost eager for it. Meanwhile, on Earth, Professor Miller's sensors detected the Imperial ships beginning to move. "They're pulling back," she told Walker. "All their scanning ships are retreating." "That means they've made their decision," Walker said grimly. "They'll be back with everything they have." Miller smiled. "Good, because now we get to show them everything we have." The Empire was about to learn a harsh lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous opponent isn't the one with the most advanced technology, but the one who knows how to use that technology in ways you never imagined. The Imperial First Fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system like a storm of metal and light. 5,000 ships, each one bigger than the largest building on Earth. They filled the space between Neptune and Uranus, their weapons charged and ready. In Earth's Defense Command Center, Admiral Walker watched the massive fleet approach on his screens. "They brought everything, just like we expected," he said calmly. "Captain Reynolds, is your team ready?" Tom Reynolds, leader of Earth's space fighter squadrons, stood at attention. "Yes, sir. All pilots are in position. Drone squadrons are programmed and waiting." The Imperial fleet moved closer, passing Saturn's orbit. High Commander Reed stood on his flagship's bridge, confident in his overwhelming force. "Send the message," Reed ordered. "Let's see how brave they are now." The transmission reached Earth moments later. "This is your final chance to surrender. You face the full might of the Imperial First Fleet. Resistance will result in your world's destruction." Walker looked at Professor Miller, who nodded. Everything was ready. "Send our response," Walker ordered. "Keep it simple." The message Earth sent back was just 3 words: "Come and try." Reed's face turned dark with anger. "All ships, attack formation. Full speed ahead." The Imperial fleet accelerated, their engines burning bright against the black of space. They expected Earth to panic at their approach. Instead, they found something very different waiting for them. Thousands of small lights appeared in the space around Jupiter. Earth's automated drone fleet, hidden until now, sprang to life. Each drone was smaller than the Empire's smallest ship, but there were tens of thousands of them. "Drones deployed," Reynolds reported. "Starting attack pattern Alpha." The drones moved in ways the Empire had never seen before. They didn't follow the strict, predictable patterns of normal space combat. Instead, they moved like a swarm of angry bees, each one controlled by a mixture of human intelligence and artificial programming. "Impossible," Reed shouted as the first wave of drones tore through his fleet's formation. "Their ships have no pilots. How are they moving like that?" The answer came from his tactical officer. "Sir, each drone is different. They're not following standard attack patterns. We can't predict their movements." On Earth, Reynolds watched his tactical display with pride. "That's right," he muttered. "Humans don't fight like machines, so we taught our machines to fight like humans." The Imperial fleet's perfect formation broke apart as they tried to deal with the drone swarm. Their big ships were powerful but slow, designed to fight other big ships. The drones were too small, too fast, and too unpredictable. "Second phase," Walker commanded. "Launch our fighters." Earth's manned squadrons rose from hidden bases on the Moon and Mars. Unlike the drones, these ships had pilots. Human pilots who had trained for this moment their entire careers. "All squadrons, attack pattern Omega," Reynolds called to his pilots. "Remember your training. They expect us to fight like them. Show them how Earth really fights." The human pilots dove into the chaos, working perfectly with their drone partners. Where Imperial ships expected direct attacks, Earth's forces struck from blind spots. Where the Empire formed defensive lines, Earth's ships flowed around them like water. In just 2 hours, the mighty Imperial First Fleet lost 300 ships without destroying a single manned Earth vessel. "This is impossible," Reed raged as another explosion lit up his view screen. "They're nothing. They're primitive. How are they doing this?" The answer came from his own science director, Blake, who had warned the Council about underestimating Earth. "Because they're not fighting like an Imperial force, Commander. They're fighting like humans." Walker watched as the Imperial fleet began to pull back, their perfect formations shattered. "Send the final message," he ordered. Across every Imperial communication channel, Earth's message played. "This was just our outer defense line. Turn back now, or find out what our real defenses look like." The Imperial First Fleet retreated, leaving behind hundreds of destroyed ships and one unmistakable truth. Humanity wasn't just ready for this fight. They were winning it. The Imperial Council chamber had never been so quiet. First Counselor Dawn stared at the hologram showing the remains of their defeated fleet scattered across the solar system. 300 ships, Dawn said slowly. "We lost 300 ships to these humans." High Commander Reeves stood before them, his uniform no longer perfectly pressed. "They fought like nothing we've ever seen. But we still have our ultimate weapon. The planet crackers are ready." Science Director Blake stepped forward. "Commander, I advise against." "Your advice is noted and rejected." Reed snapped. "We will not be humiliated by primitives. Ready the planet crackers." Back on Earth, Professor Miller rushed into the command center. "Admiral, they're powering up their super weapons. The planet crackers are moving into position." Walker nodded calmly. "Right on schedule." "Are you ready?" Miller smiled. "I've been ready for 50 years. The planet crackers were the Empire's most feared weapons. Massive ships that could split a planet in half using quantum fusion technology. 5 of them now moved toward Earth, their huge engines glowing with power. "This is High Commander Reed to Earth Defense." Reed's voice boomed through the command center. "Your resistance ends now. These weapons can crack your planet like an egg. Surrender or be destroyed." Walker pressed his communication button. "This is Earth Defense to High Commander Reed. Thank you for bringing your planet crackers into range." Reed's confident expression faltered. "Into range?" "Professor Miller," Walker said, "show them what 50 years of quantum research looks like." Miller pressed a series of buttons on her console. Across Earth's surface, hidden quantum transmitters activated. They had been built using knowledge gained from that crashed scout ship, but taken in a direction the Empire had never imagined. "Quantum disruption field activating," Miller announced, "targeting their quantum fusion cores." On the planet crackers, alarms began to sound. Their quantum fusion cores, the source of their immense power, started to flicker and fail. "What's happening?" Reed demanded as warning lights flashed across his bridge. "The humans," Blake answered, watching the readings in horror. "They didn't just study our technology. They found its weakness. Quantum fusion relies on stable quantum fields, but they found a way to disrupt them." Miller watched with satisfaction as the mighty planet crackers went dark, their power cores shutting down to prevent catastrophic failure. "You see, High Commander," she explained over the comm channel, "quantum fusion is impressive, but it's also delicate. The right disruption field can shut it down completely. We discovered that when we studied your scout ship's core 50 years ago." Walker stepped forward. "Your ships aren't destroyed, Commander. They're just turned off, like we did to your ships at Mars. We could have made the disruption more violent, but we're not like you. We don't destroy when we don't have to." The Imperial fleet hung motionless in space, their most powerful weapons rendered useless by Earth's defense system. "Impossible," Reed whispered. "Our quantum technology is the most advanced in the galaxy. How could you possibly counter it?" "Because you stopped looking for new ideas," Miller replied. "Your empire has used the same technology for thousands of years. Humans, we never stop innovating. Never stop asking, what if?" News of the planet cracker's failure spread quickly through the galaxy. The Empire's most powerful weapons, defeated by a world they had called primitive. "What now?" Miller asked Walker as they watched the Imperial ships retreat once again. "Now they know they can't crack Earth open," Walker said. "So they'll try something desperate. And we'll be ready for that too." In the Imperial fleet, Blake watched the quantum readings from Earth with growing amazement. "Humans," the science director muttered. "They don't think like us at all." And that's what makes them so dangerous. The Empire had ruled through fear of their superior technology. But now, a single world had shown that technology was only as good as the imagination of those who used it. And humans, it seemed, had imagination to spare. The message arrived through an old emergency channel that Earth's scientists had discovered in the crashed scout ship's computer. It was short, simple, and changed everything. We heard about Earth. We want to learn. Help us. Admiral Walker stared at the message on his screen. Where did this come from? Professor Miller checked the signal data. The Centauri system, one of the Empire's oldest colonies. She looked up with excitement in her eyes. They're reaching out to us, James. Just like we hoped they would. More messages followed. From dozens of systems, then hundreds. Every world that had been crushed under Imperial rule now saw hope in Earth's resistance. They had watched as a single primitive world had humbled the mighty Empire not once, but twice. In the Imperial Palace, First Counselor Dawn faced a growing crisis. Reports of unrest filled the massive screen before the council. 6 systems have stopped paying tribute, a nervous official reported. 20 more are showing signs of rebellion. They're all asking for Earth's help. High Commander Reed slammed his fist on the table. This is why we should have destroyed them immediately. Now they're spreading their poison through the Empire. Science Director Blake spoke quietly from the corner. They're spreading hope, Commander. Something your planet crackers can't destroy. On Earth, Walker met with representatives from 24 worlds through secret quantum channels that the Empire couldn't detect. Professor Miller had modified their communication technology to work without Imperial relay stations. We've fought the Empire for centuries, a rebel leader from the Centauri system said. But we could never match their technology. Until we saw what Earth did. You showed us it's possible. Another added, not just to resist, but to win. Walker leaned forward. We'll help you. We'll teach you everything we've learned. But understand this, we're not trading one empire for another. Earth believes in freedom. Real freedom. Miller brought up a galactic map showing Imperial territory. The Empire's biggest weakness is their own success, she explained to the rebels. They've ruled so long, they think their way is the only way. But look here. She highlighted dozens of systems. These worlds all have unique resources, unique ideas. The Empire forced them all to be the same, to follow Imperial ways. But imagine if they were free to develop their own technologies, their own solutions. The rebels' faces lit up with understanding. Centuries of Imperial rule had forced their worlds to abandon their own innovations, their own ways of thinking. Earth was offering them a chance to be themselves again. News of the growing rebellion reached High Commander Reed aboard his flagship. 40 systems now in open revolt, his officer reported. They're using Earth's quantum disruption technology. Our weapons don't work anymore. Reed turned to Blake. How? How are they spreading this technology so quickly? The science director smiled slightly. Because they're not just copying it, Commander. Each world is adapting it, improving it in their own way, just like Earth did with our scout ship. They're teaching each other to think differently. In Earth's command center, Walker and Miller watched as more and more systems declared their independence. The Empire's rushing ships to contain the rebellion, Walker said, studying the tactical display. But they can't be everywhere at once. Miller nodded. And every world they lose makes them weaker, while we get stronger. She paused, looking at a message that just arrived. The Rigel system is asking for help now. They say they've found a way to improve our quantum disruption field. Walker smiled. See, we're not just fighting the Empire anymore. We're building something new, something better. The Empire had ruled through uniformity and control, but Earth had shown the galaxy a different path, one where every world could be unique, could contribute its own ideas and innovations. The revolution wasn't just about breaking the Empire's power. It was about freeing the galaxy's imagination. The Imperial Palace shook as First Counselor Dawn hurried through its golden halls. Emergency alarms blared throughout the massive structure. How many? Dawn demanded, entering the emergency command center. 200 systems in open rebellion. An officer reported. More joining every hour. They're sharing technology, improving on each other's innovations. Our forces can't adapt fast enough. High Commander Reeb stood before a massive tactical display showing the crumbling empire. Red lights indicated rebellious systems, and the map was mostly red. "We have no choice," Reed said, his voice hard. "We must crush Earth, destroy the source of this rebellion. I've gathered every ship we have left for one final assault." In Earth's command center, Admiral Walker and Professor Miller watched the Imperial fleet assemble. It was massive. Nearly 10,000 ships gathered for a desperate final attack. "They're throwing everything they have at us," Miller said, studying the readings, "even pulling ships from their home defense fleet." Walker nodded. "They have to. Earth isn't just a military threat anymore. We're an idea. And ideas are more dangerous than any weapon." The comm system crackled. A familiar voice filled the room. "Science Director Blake. Earth Defense. This is Imperial Science Director Blake. I'm sending you the Empire's attack plans. Their codes. Everything." There was a pause. "You were right. About everything. The Empire's way isn't the only way. Maybe it was never the best way." Miller checked the data. "It's real. Full tactical data on their entire fleet." Walker smiled. "Thank you, Director. Will you be joining us?" "I already have," Blake replied, "along with half the Imperial Science Division. We're tired of being told there's only one way to think." The Imperial fleet jumped into Earth's solar system, filling the space between Mars and Jupiter. 10,000 ships, the last great force of a dying empire. "This is High Commander Reed to all ships." Reed's voice boomed across space. "Destroy everything. No mercy. No survivors. Fire." But Earth wasn't alone anymore. From behind Mars, a fleet of ships appeared, vessels from 200 rebel worlds, each modified with their own innovations. From Jupiter's moons, another fleet emerged, led by former Imperial scientists who had chosen freedom over control. And from Earth, the largest drone swarm ever created rose to meet the Imperial fleet. Each drone carried technology from a different rebel world, combined in ways the Empire had never imagined. "All forces, attack," Walker commanded calmly. "Show them what freedom looks like." The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Imperial ships found their weapons disrupted by quantum fields from the Centauri systems. Their shields failed against fusion beams developed on Rigel. Their formations broke against attack patterns created by mixing Earth's unpredictability with Antarian swarm tactics. On his flagship's bridge, Reed watched his fleet crumble. "How?" he whispered. "How can they be beating us? We had thousands of years of development." "No," Blake's voice came through his comm. "We had thousands of years of staying the same. They have something better, the freedom to change." The battle lasted just 6 hours. When it ended, the Imperial fleet was in ruins. High Commander Reed's flagship surrendered, along with hundreds of other Imperial vessels. In Earth's command center, Miller looked at Walker. "It's over. The Empire. It's really over." Walker shook his head. "No, it's just beginning. Now we have to build something better." 1 month later, representatives from 300 worlds gathered on Earth. They formed the Free Systems Alliance, not an empire, but a partnership of equals. Each world was free to develop in its own way, to contribute its unique ideas to the galaxy's future. "The stars belong to everyone all along," Walker said at the signing ceremony. "We just had to be brave enough to claim them." Professor Miller stood beside him, watching ships from 100 worlds moving peacefully through Earth's space. "You know what the Empire never understood," she said softly. "The strongest force in the universe isn't power or fear or even technology." She smiled. "It's the simple human desire to be free, to think differently, to imagine something new. And so, the galaxy entered a new age, not one of imperial control, but of freedom, innovation, and endless possibilities. All because one primitive world dared to say no to an empire and yes to imagination.